At 8:38, the driveway was still holding the shape of the visit. The car had been turned off, but the warmth of the engine remained near the floorboards. The porch light ahead made a small circle on the front steps. Inside the house, a room was probably settling back into itself, chairs pushed in a little crooked, a cup left too close to the edge of the table, the quiet returning after family voices had filled it. Beside the steering wheel sat the old lunch cooler. It looked smaller now than it used to. Scuffed at the corners. A little faded where so many hands had carried it through ordinary mornings. Not precious enough for anyone to save on purpose, but somehow still here. And maybe what stayed with you was not the whole visit. Maybe it was only that hand. An older hand reaching for a cup, slow but familiar, as if care had always known how to move before anyone found words for it. You sat there after drop-off, alone in the car, watching the porch light through the windshield. Nothing needed to become a lesson. It was enough that people had tried to love in the ways they knew. The driveway had that quiet that comes after a car door has already closed. Not silence exactly. There was still the low tick of the engine cooling, the faint sound of a television from somewhere down the block, a dog giving one tired bark and then deciding against more. The porch light stayed on ahead of you, not bright enough to erase the dark, only enough to show the steps, the railing, the small place where someone had stood a little earlier and lifted a hand. The visit had not been large. It was not the kind anyone would photograph. No birthday candles. No long table. No moment that would look meaningful from the outside. Just a parent's house after dinner, or after coffee, or after the kind of sitting that begins with catching up and ends with everyone noticing how late it has become. There had been a cup on the table. That was what kept returning. An older hand had reached for it slowly, with that carefulness that comes when the body has begun to ask for more attention than it used to. The movement was small. The fingers curled around the cup, paused, lifted it just enough. Nothing dramatic happened. No one said anything tender enough to remember on purpose. Still, it stayed. Maybe because love had often looked that way in that house. Not like speeches. Not like easy apologies. Not like someone knowing exactly how to say what they meant. More like a lunch packed before work. A bill paid without much comment. A ride offered in bad weather. A hand wiping a counter after everyone else had left the room. The old lunch cooler sat beside the steering wheel as if it had been listening. Its zipper was a little stubborn. One side had softened from years of being shoved behind a seat or set on a garage shelf. It had carried sandwiches, fruit, folded napkins, maybe a thermos once, maybe something wrapped in foil before a long shift. It had the look of something that belonged to mornings when nobody had time to be gentle, but people were still trying. You looked at it and did not need to name anything. The child had been dropped off. The evening had been handed over, the way some evenings are, with a backpack, a quiet goodbye, maybe a reminder about a jacket or a water bottle. The house behind you was not your house now. Not tonight. And the place waiting for you would be clean in the particular way a home can be clean when only one person lives there. No stray shoes by the door. No hallway light left on by mistake. No second voice asking where something went. There can be relief in that. There can also be a hollowness that does not announce itself until the car is still. The porch light ahead made the windshield look almost soft. It caught the faint dust near the glass and turned it into something visible. Inside the parents' house, the last room was probably beginning to go quiet. Someone might be rinsing that cup. Someone might be turning down the thermostat. Someone might be moving slowly from one room to another, carrying the day in an older body. And you sat there, not ready to drive. At 8:38 p.m., nothing needed to be solved. The old lunch cooler did not ask to become a symbol. The hand reaching for the cup did not ask to become a story. Even the porch light did not ask for gratitude. It simply stayed on for a little while, the way ordinary care sometimes stays on, long after people have run out of things to say. You could have started the car right away. There was nothing stopping you. The drop-off was finished. The visit was over. The child was inside where they were supposed to be, or nearly inside, moving through another doorway, another household rhythm, another version of evening. The parent you had visited was behind the lit windows now, returning slowly to the rooms that had always seemed both familiar and slightly changed. Still, your hand stayed near the keys. Some pauses do not feel chosen. They just arrive. The old lunch cooler leaned against the console, its soft side pressed into the shadow beside your knee. Earlier, it had seemed practical, almost invisible. Something to bring along because someone had said there might be leftovers, or because you had gotten used to carrying small things between homes. A container for what did not quite belong in your hands. Now it had a presence. It brought back the old kind of care that never announced itself as care. Food wrapped too tightly. Ice packs tucked under lids. A sandwich cut because someone had once known the way you liked it. A napkin folded without attention. The kind of ordinary preparation that happened before work, before school, before long days that did not leave room for saying much. Maybe nobody in that house had ever been especially good at tenderness. Maybe love had moved around the edges instead. It came through the practical things. A cup placed closer to someone's reach. A light left on by the door. A cooler rinsed out and used again, even after the corners wore down. A parent asking whether you had eaten, when what they meant was harder to say. A person carrying something to the car because standing there together was easier than naming what the visit had stirred. You watched the porch light through the windshield. The glass reflected a faint version of your own face, but not clearly enough to study. That was a mercy. There are evenings when seeing yourself too sharply would only make the room inside you feel smaller. It was better to see the light, the steps, the closed door, the shape of the house settling back into quiet. A house after family has a particular sound. Even from outside, you can imagine it. Cabinets closing with less force. A faucet running for a few seconds. Someone shifting a chair back under the table. The soft scrape of a cup in the sink. The small decision not to do the rest of the dishes until morning. Nothing big. Nothing that would explain a life. But there you were, holding the whole thing gently because it had come to you gently. The older hand reaching for the cup. The slow lift. The quiet effort in it. The way no one paused the conversation to honor that movement, because in families, many tender things happen without anyone knowing when to look. You did not need to make yourself regretful. You did not need to make yourself grateful in a loud way either. The evening already held enough. The driveway, the porch light, the old lunch cooler, the faint tiredness in your shoulders. The feeling of having come close to something that had been there all along, not perfect, not always easy, but still carrying warmth in its ordinary shape. Soon, you would drive back to the place where you lived alone. You would turn into your own driveway or parking spot. You would carry the cooler inside. Maybe you would set it on the counter and leave it there longer than necessary. Maybe the rooms would be quiet in that clean, untouched way, waiting without needing anything from you. But for one more minute, you stayed. The porch light remained ahead of you. And the moment did not become a lesson. It simply kept you company. The quiet inside the car began to feel different from the quiet outside it. Outside, the street was still carrying the last pieces of the evening. A car passed at the far end of the block, tires whispering over the pavement. Somewhere, a garage door lowered with a long, tired sound. The porch light stayed steady on the house ahead, making the siding look warmer than it probably was. Inside the car, there was only your breathing. The old lunch cooler rested where you had left it, close enough that your hand could have reached down and touched the worn fabric. You did not. For some reason, touching it would have made the moment too clear. It was easier to let it sit there, a small object with its years folded into itself, holding more than its size allowed. You thought of all the things people carry without calling them love. A cooler packed before sunrise. A cup set within reach. A porch light left on because someone might still be outside. A parent asking about traffic when they are really asking whether the drive was hard, whether you are eating enough, whether the life you have now is not too lonely when the rooms go still. Families do not always know how to be gentle in the way we later wish they had been. Sometimes they give what they know how to give. A second helping. A ride home. A warning about the weather. A plastic container pressed into your hands at the door. A reminder to call when you get there, said in a voice that makes it sound like habit, though it is really worry wearing ordinary clothes. And sometimes, years later, after the child has gone inside and the visit has ended, you see it all in one hand reaching for a cup. Not the whole story. Just one movement. The older hand had not been graceful in the way young hands are graceful. It had work in it. Years in it. A little stiffness. A little care. The cup had been close, but not close enough, and you had noticed the small effort it took to bring it nearer. That was all. But it stayed with you. Maybe because living alone had made small sounds louder. The refrigerator turning on in the middle of the night. The click of a lamp after you shut it off. The way a clean counter can look peaceful at first, and then, later, a little untouched. The way no one asks where you put the mail unless someone else lives there to wonder. There was nothing wrong with the quiet waiting for you. It was your quiet. Your kitchen. Your own chair. Your own cup in the sink if you had left one there. There was a kind of peace in not having to explain your tiredness to anyone when you walked through the door. Still, after family, even imperfect family, solitude can feel newly shaped. Not worse. Just more noticeable. You sat with that noticing without trying to fix it. The porch light ahead softened the windshield. The old cooler sat beside you like something that had survived many ordinary uses. The house in front of you held an older person moving slowly through the last rooms of the day. Somewhere inside, a cup might now be rinsed and turned upside down in the dish rack. Nothing had been said exactly right. Maybe nothing needed to be. For a moment, you could feel warmth for the plain ways people had tried. Not perfect warmth. Not the kind that erases what was hard. Just enough warmth to let the evening remain itself. The hand. The cup. The cooler. The light. And you, still parked in the driveway, letting the moment stay small. Later, when you finally turned the key, the car sounded too loud. The engine came back on with a small shudder. The dashboard lit up. The radio tried to return to whatever station had been playing before, but you turned the volume down before the first words could fully enter the car. It felt wrong to let another voice arrive so quickly. The driveway had been holding something quiet. You backed out slowly. The porch light shifted in the windshield, moved to the side window, then settled behind you in the mirror. For a few seconds, it was still visible there, a small yellow square in the dark, attached to a house that had known you in more than one version of your life. A younger version. A married version. A tired version standing at the door with a child's bag in one hand. A version that had not yet learned how strange it can feel to be both needed and alone. The old lunch cooler slid a little when the car turned. Not far. Just enough to make a soft sound against the console. You glanced down at it and then back at the road. The streets were familiar in the way suburban streets become familiar after years of arriving, leaving, dropping off, picking up, promising to call, forgetting something, turning around, starting again. Mailboxes passed in the headlights. A basketball hoop leaned at the edge of a driveway. A trash bin waited near the curb. A living room window glowed blue from a television no one seemed to be watching closely. These were not remarkable things. They were only the kind of evening details that keep a neighborhood from feeling empty. Still, everything felt a little touched. The hand reaching for the cup had followed you into the car. It was not asking you to feel sad. It was not asking you to make up for every time you had been distracted, impatient, far away, or too busy to notice. It was only there, the way some images stay because they were simple enough to hold. An older hand. A cup. A pause in the conversation. A room where love had probably done its best with the tools it had. You drove with both hands on the wheel for a while. The road opened into a wider street, then narrowed again near the houses. Porch lights came and went. Some homes were already dark. Some had kitchen lights on, showing the quick shape of someone moving past a window, carrying a plate, closing a cabinet, bending toward a dishwasher. People were finishing their days in small ways. That thought stayed with you. Not as comfort exactly. More like company. All over the neighborhood, people were putting things away without making speeches about it. Someone was rinsing a lunch container for tomorrow. Someone was checking whether the back door was locked. Someone was standing barefoot on the kitchen floor, drinking water from a glass and looking at nothing in particular. The world was full of these almost invisible gestures. You had lived around them for years. Maybe everybody had. And maybe that was why the old lunch cooler felt heavier than it should have. It was not only yours for the evening. It seemed to carry every packed lunch, every rushed morning, every hand that had reached across a counter to make sure someone left with enough. It carried the plain work of caring for people who might not understand it until much later, on some quiet drive after a family visit. The traffic light ahead turned red. You stopped. For a moment, there was no one behind you. No one beside you. The intersection held its breath under the streetlights. The cooler rested against the console. Your hands loosened on the wheel. You thought of your own place waiting. The one person quiet. The clean sink, maybe. The lamp you had left on, maybe not. The chair that would still be where you left it. The kind of home that does not ask many questions when you walk in, but also does not answer anything for you. There was a tenderness in that too. A different kind. Not better. Not worse. Just yours. The light changed. You drove on, carrying the porch light behind you now, carrying the cup, carrying the old cooler beside the steering wheel. And somewhere beneath the tiredness, there was a small warmth for the ordinary ways people had tried to love, even when they had not known how to make it sound beautiful. When you reached your own place, the rooms were waiting the way they always waited. No hurry. No complaint. Just the small dark shape of home after a long evening, the porch or hallway light making enough space for your key, the door opening into air that had not moved much since you left. You stepped inside carrying the old lunch cooler by its handle. It bumped lightly against your leg once, then settled back into your hand. The sound was small. Still, in the quiet, it seemed to belong. You set the cooler near the kitchen counter, or maybe on a chair beside the door, in that temporary place where things land before anyone decides what to do with them. The house did not ask you to explain why you stood there for a moment without moving. It did not ask whether the visit had gone well. It did not ask whether the child had looked back, or whether your parent had seemed older tonight, or whether the drive home had been longer than the miles. The house simply held you. That was one of the strange mercies of living alone. There was no one there to misunderstand the look on your face. No one to ask a question before you had found the answer. No one to fill the quiet too quickly with the noise of another need. And still, the quiet had edges. You could hear the refrigerator hum. You could hear the faint settling of the walls. Maybe the air conditioner clicked on, or a pipe shifted somewhere behind a room. Ordinary sounds, not lonely by themselves, but in certain evenings they seemed to show the size of the space around you. You left the cooler where it was. For a while, you did not unpack it. There might have been food inside, wrapped carefully by someone who said it was nothing. A container with a lid that did not quite match. A piece of foil folded over itself. Something practical, because practical care is often the last language people still trust when tenderness feels too exposed. You could almost hear the voice again. Take this. Not a speech. Not an apology. Not everything that had never been said. Just take this. The older hand reaching for the cup returned to you then, softer than before. Not as a sharp memory. Not as regret. More like a light under a closed door. You remembered the way the fingers had moved carefully, the way the cup had waited on the table, the way nobody had stopped the room for that small effort. There are things a person does not notice until later. Not because they were careless. Maybe because life was loud. Because children needed shoes. Because the marriage was ending or had ended. Because bills were due, and work had to be answered, and everyone was trying to get through the day with whatever patience they had left. The noticing comes when it comes. Sometimes it comes beside a steering wheel. Sometimes in a kitchen where only one cup is in the sink. Sometimes with an old lunch cooler sitting under a strip of counter light, carrying the plain evidence that someone once packed, carried, rinsed, reused, and kept going. You touched the top of it then. The fabric was cooler than your hand. A little rough. A little softened by use. It did not feel sentimental. It felt real. It felt like mornings, work shoes, car seats, school bags, the rush to leave on time, the quiet hope that someone would have enough for the day. And maybe that was the warmth. Not the kind that fixes the past. Not the kind that makes family simple. Only the kind that lets one ordinary object remain on the counter without needing to mean more than it can hold. An old lunch cooler. A quiet room. A hand reaching for a cup. People trying, imperfectly, in the ways they knew. You stood there a little longer. The last room went quiet. For a while, you did not turn on more lights. The kitchen had enough. A thin light over the counter, maybe the small one above the stove, maybe the glow from the hallway reaching only partway into the room. The old lunch cooler sat where you had left it, not opened, not moved, looking almost like it had chosen that place for itself. Outside the windows, the neighborhood had lowered. A car passed once and then the street returned to itself. Somewhere far off, a siren rose and faded before it ever became part of the room. The refrigerator hummed. The floor held your footsteps and then gave them back as quiet. There was nothing left to do right away. That was the strange part. For years, evenings had probably trained your body to keep moving. Put the bag down. Check the homework folder. Answer the message. Find the missing shoe. Wash the cup. Fold the shirt. Look at the clock and realize someone still needed something. Even after the divorce, even living alone, the body can keep listening for the next need. It waits for a voice from another room. It waits for a door to open. It waits for a small interruption that does not come. So you stood there in the part of the room no one photographs. Not the clean table. Not the warm lamp. Not the place a person would show to anyone. Just the little in-between space near the counter, where a cooler could sit unopened and an adult could stand with their keys still in hand, feeling the day slowly leave their shoulders. The older hand came back again. Not loudly. Just there. The fingers reaching for the cup. The small delay before lifting it. The way the room had continued around that movement, because families are full of things no one stops to name. Someone talks about traffic. Someone asks about school. Someone checks the time. Someone reaches for a cup with an older hand, and the whole history of trying seems to pass through the room without asking permission. You took off your shoes. Maybe you left them near the door, not lined up perfectly. Maybe one turned slightly on its side. It did not matter. There was nobody there to mind it, and nobody there to notice that you were moving more slowly than usual. The cooler remained on the counter. Its handle had fallen to one side. There was a dull mark near the zipper, a place where the fabric had worn thin. It was not beautiful. It was not meant to be. It belonged to use. To work days. To lunches packed while coffee was still brewing. To mornings when love had no time to sound gentle, so it became practical. A container. A folded napkin. Something cold kept cold. Something carried so someone would have enough. That was all. And maybe that was a lot. You did not have to turn it into forgiveness. You did not have to make the visit better than it was. You did not have to pretend family had always known how to be soft. The room did not ask that from you. It only allowed the small warmth to stay. Warmth for the ordinary ways people tried to love. Warmth for the cup on the table. Warmth for the old cooler that had come home with you again. Warmth even for the silence that followed you into the kitchen and did not press against you as hard as it sometimes did. At 8:38, the driveway had held the moment. Now the kitchen held what was left of it. You rinsed one cup, or maybe you only set it in the sink. The water sounded brief and plain. The last room went quiet around you, not empty exactly, just still. The cooler stayed where it was. And for once, that was enough. Maybe later, the cooler would be emptied. Maybe the container would be rinsed, the foil folded into the trash, the handle pushed back down before you set it somewhere near the door. Tomorrow, it might become ordinary again. Just a thing to carry. Just another object passing from car to kitchen, from one small responsibility to the next. But tonight, it stayed a little longer. The house was quiet around it. The kind of quiet that does not hurry a person toward any answer. The kind that lets the refrigerator hum, and lets the floor settle, and lets one adult stand in the kitchen after a family visit with nothing left to prove. You could still see the porch light. Not with your eyes now, but somewhere behind them. A soft square of light through the windshield. The older hand reaching for the cup. The small effort. The ordinary room going on around it. No one had said anything perfect. No one had needed to. Some love had been awkward. Some had been late. Some had come wrapped in practical things, in leftovers, in warnings about the road, in cups set close enough to reach. And some of it had simply survived, quiet and worn, like the old lunch cooler on the counter. You stood there until the room felt less empty. Not full. Just less empty. Then the last sound of the evening lowered into the walls, and the moment remained what it was, a small warmth, after family, asking nothing more of you.